Ranking Member and Chairman Waxman and Chairman Emeritus Mr. Dingell for leadership in Medicare over the years as well. I join Mr. Roscom and all of you in trying to find some solutions to this big issue. The bill that I'm submitting for your consideration is drawn up with Ileana Ross-Lehtinen from Miami. It's H.R. 5044. It's called Medicare Fraud Enforcement and Prevention Act. As Ms. Castor mentioned, she and I both represent large areas of South Florida, and West Florida, which include large numbers of Medicare participants. And unfortunately, in particular, there have been large concentrations of Medicare fraud. You know the story about go where the money is, and this seems to be one of those areas that it absolutely follows through. I think we've all had constituents, and I can share with you the stories of constituents that come to my office with sheets of billing which are just outrageous. I mean, repetitive, false information, all sorts of things, and literally just pages and pages of the same services, in some cases billed over and over again. Now, I'm not suggesting this is the norm, but we know that there are lots of cases in the billions and billions of dollars which add up to this, and the question is why and how can we address it? I think we know it's deplorable for all of us to allow our seniors to be preyed upon by these criminals. And by the way, they're not all small-time criminals. There's organized crime behind this. It's large scale in this type of approach. We know that who loses from Medicare fraud? It's obviously the people who provide the services, whether they be doctors, hospitals, legitimate providers, people who are on the receiving end who want to get the best benefit for the dollars that they've contributed, and taxpayers. All of us are taxpayers. We're all paying in every year with the view that Medicare will be there for us. So in short, we are all losers when a criminal commits Medicare fraud, and we have an obligation to fight back. Our bill takes a comprehensive approach at attacking criminals who seek nothing more than ripping off Medicare, as I said, and preying on seniors. And the way we're approaching it picks up on some of the things that Mr. Roscom said. We had a chance to meet with a number of the strike force people down in Florida. We've met with the FBI, we've met with law enforcement, we've met with the Inspector General's office, we've met with the committee staff to try to really get a comprehensive view on what are the specific things that can be done. And what we've come up with are a number of things. Number one, on the law enforcement side, to make much more significant the criminal penalties for committing these acts. I mean, that's a very common sense approach here, but the slap on the wrist is unacceptable. Someone who's going to commit this kind of fraud, obviously it's fines and criminal penalties, but you know, for the same reason we know that many of the people who commit the fraud, many times they're gone. And those of us who live in areas where they're bordering other parts of the other countries, they're out of here. I mean, once they collect their checks, they're leaving the country or they're going somewhere else. So yes, it's good to have a deterrent factor in place and have a much more substantial way of setting out a deterrence of saying, if you do this, you will be in prison for a long time and you will pay significantly. That's appropriate, and that's part of this bill. But the second part of it is what we all know is the pay and chase issue, and that's what we've been talking about, and that's people get this Medicare provider number in a very simple way. The due diligence, the checking, the verification is unfortunately not what it should be. So what we've done is we have put a number of things in place in our proposal which gets to the point of providers and suppliers, before they can get their Medicare number and go off to the races, is having a much more thorough pre-screening measure through use of technology and a lot of other things. And this is the way to stay ahead of the criminals. Once they get the number, they're getting the checks. And even to the point where our bill makes it a much more significant crime to be a part of this whole process by selling your number to others. Or unfortunately in South Florida, we've heard of the cases where lots of senior citizens are getting paid to have their number used, and they're getting 20, 30 bucks. And obviously that individual number is being used for a significant multiplier. Another issue that we found is a flaw in the system are the unnecessary gaps in time when a fraudulent claim is submitted and when the law enforcement agency is alerted. That's a time squeeze that needs to be reduced down to nothing. We met with a local Medicare administrative contractor for Florida, and although they told us they have some sophisticated computer system to check for anomalies, they only download this information once a week. Well, if you're only downloading it once a week, again, it goes to the point of credit card information. This isn't rocket science. This can be done. It can be done in real time. It's all technology based, and it can be done in real time. So again, it's just another specific solution to the problem. And of course, this whole notion of providing law enforcement with more resources, more personnel on the ground, I'm a big believer in this case, to spend a little more money to save substantially more money, I think is an appropriate investment here. So these are some of the ideas in our bill that we'd ask you to take a look at. Time is of the essence. Every day that passes, millions more goes out the door into criminals' hands, and more importantly, it doesn't go to the people who need to provide those services and to the people who are paying for them. As we've said before, this is a bipartisan issue. I'm very proud to work with Ileana Ross-Lehtinen, Mr. Roscom, and many of you I know have already talked about in your opening statements, and you have lots of ideas from back home. So we look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, and the whole committee in working and creating some legislation, whether it's mine or his or anybody else's, to pass something, as we are going to pass a piece of our bill and a piece of these bills this week on dealing with Medicare. We're very proud of being participating in that, but we look forward to working with all of you on this.